Liquidation of a company. Liquidation of a company means the winding up of the company or the closure of company through the provisions of law. So liquidation can be broadly classified into three types. One is voluntary liquidation, and liquidation by the shareholders, and liquidation under the supervision of court. What will happen once the company goes into the process of liquidation? A liquidator will be appointed to oversee the liquidation process. The powers of board of directors will now vest with the liquidator himself. Then what the liquidator will do is he will look at the assets which are there in the company, and if those assets are realizable, those assets will be sold, and whatever he receives out of the sale proceeds of the realization of those assets will be utilized towards the various liabilities. And if those proceeds of the assets are not sufficient, then the members would be required to contribute towards the liabilities. Therefore, they are also known as contributories. So how is this liability prepared? For this, we prepare something known as statement of affairs, which starts with list A, wherein we say assets not specifically pledged. So those assets are not secured against any of the liabilities and they are free from encumbrances. So then we'll come to list B, where assets are specifically pledged. That means a particular asset, let's say land and building, is pledged against bank overdraft. Then whatever sale proceeds we get out of the sale of land and buildings will have to be first applied towards the bank OD. Then if there is any amount left, then it would be considered for other liabilities. Then we come to list C. List C is about preferential creditors. Those creditors who will have preference over the others. Then comes list D. Debentures secured against a floating charge. If there is any debenture which is secured against a floating charge, not against any specific asset, that will be part of list D. Then comes list E, that is the unsecured creditors. After looking after the various secured and preferential creditors, will now come to unsecured creditors. So that means these creditors are those liabilities which are not secured against any asset as such. Then list F. Then we will have to settle the liability with regard to preference share capital, if there is any. Then lastly, list G, we will settle the liability of equity shareholders. And if at all there is any money left, that would be treated as surplus or deficiency according to list H. So this is how we will prepare the statement of affairs. Likewise, we will also sometimes be required to prepare liquidator's final statement of account, wherein the same thing would be prepared more or less, but in the form of an account, wherein on the debit side we'll look at the various receipts and on the credit side we'll look at the various payments. Ultimately, the account should tally. That's what we do in case of liquidator's final statement of account.